is one of the most wonderful views in the world. Over 1,000 warriors guarding their ruler for eternity.
Hidden beneath Mount Lee's silent slopes near Xi'an is a mystery that has defied the passage of time, the untouched tomb of China's first emperor.
With the possible exception of the Great Wall, there's nothing more Chinese than these warriors. And yet, a new theory suggests that this great icon of China may be guarding an explosive secret.
Archaeologists once laughed at China for keeping it sealed, but they've stopped laughing now.
This incredible treasure represents one of the rarest and most priceless archaeological finds of the modern age.
Advanced scans have exposed something beneath the earth that defies explanation.
This doesn't look like a typically East Asian skull.
Proof that the legends were real and that some secrets were never meant to be uncovered. The Emperor's Hidden Army. It was the final days of March 1974. The sun beat down on the lowest plateau, drying the farmlands of Xi'an village into brittle earth. About 35 kilometers east of Xi'an, the wells had run dry, and the millet fields were dying. With no other options left, 41-year-old farmer Yang Zifa gathered 6 of his brothers and neighbors. They picked up their shovels and chose a spot outside the village to dig for water. No one imagined they were about to make one of the greatest archaeological discoveries in history. At around 5 meters deep, Yang's shovel struck something solid. He thought it was stone until he brushed away the dirt and lifted a curved piece of clay. It looked like pottery. That wasn't strange for the area, but then came roof tiles and a bronze arrowhead coated in green patina. The men joked nervously about disturbing an ancient grave and kept digging. Then came the moment that changed everything. Yang's younger brother pulled something from the soil, a clay head, life-sized and strikingly realistic, with a stern face and a topknot frozen in time. This wasn't an idol. It looked like a real man carved in clay. As they dug further, more fragments appeared. A torso, a hand gripping the remains of a weapon. It was clear they had uncovered something massive. News reached the Lintong County Museum the next day. Curator Zhao Kangmin rode out by bicycle to inspect the site. One look at the fragments, the armor, the craftsmanship, and he recognized them immediately. These figures were from the Qin dynasty, more than 2,000 years old. Despite the ongoing cultural revolution, Zhao sent an urgent report to the Shanxi Provincial Archaeology Team. The discovery was too important to ignore. By early May, the quiet farmland had turned into an excavation site. Archaeologists, soldiers, and engineers worked side by side, uncovering a trench over 200 meters long and 60 wide, large enough to hold an aircraft carrier. It became known as Pit 1. Inside stood ranks of clay soldiers arranged in perfect formation. Their armor was detailed, their hair carefully styled, and war horses and traces of wooden chariots surrounded them. Later counts revealed nearly 6,000 figures in that single pit. Pit 2 contains formations of cavalry, infantry, and war chariots, believed to represent the emperor's military guard standing in readiness. Nearby, Pit 3 serves as the command post, housing high-ranking officers and a single war chariot that symbolizes leadership and control. Pit 4, however, stands empty, likely left unfinished at the time of its sealing. Other pits contain stone suits of armor, the remains of horses and rare animals, and bronze cranes and ducks arranged in what appears to be an underground garden. Each face that archaeologists revealed from the earth was unique, some young, some aged, each with its own expression and bearing. The terracotta warriors are life-sized figures, each standing between 1.75 and 2 meters tall, with officers crafted slightly taller to reflect their rank. Every detail, from height and armor to hairstyle and expression, was carefully designed to distinguish status and individuality. Scholars have identified 10 basic facial templates, but each statue was refined by hand, giving every warrior a unique appearance. The army includes a full range of military roles: armored and unarmored infantry, cavalrymen wearing pillbox hats, helmeted chariot drivers, spear bearers, kneeling and standing archers, and commanding officers. Even within these ranks, subtle variations appear. Some figures wear shin guards, while others do not. Some wear padded trousers or heavier armor, depending on their position in formation. Terracotta horses placed among the soldiers complete the lifelike composition of the emperor's army in waiting. They were vividly painted in mineral-based pigments, reds from cinnabar and iron oxide, greens from malachite, blues from azurite, and even shades of pink, lilac, and purple from rare compounds such as barium copper silicate. Black charcoal outlined facial hair, while natural lacquer made from tree sap gave the surface a warm brown tone. The result was an army that once looked startlingly real, each face animated with color and expression. But when they were first exposed to air after the archaeologists excavated them, the lacquer dried and curled, causing the paint to flake away within minutes. Later in 1999, archaeologists uncovered another extraordinary find, a group of terracotta figures dubbed the acrobats. Unlike the rigid soldiers, these statues displayed fluid motion and striking anatomical precision. The figures, mostly wearing only loincloths, captured human movement with remarkable realism. Some were lean, others muscular, their limbs caught mid-gesture or in the act of performance. Since their discovery, both the warriors and the acrobats have been celebrated for their realism and individuality. No two figures are identical, a level of artistic detail rare in the ancient world. Over the decades, scholars have debated the origins of this naturalism. For archaeologists, though, this was only the beginning. The discovery pointed to something far greater, the lost mausoleum of Qin Shi Huang, China's first emperor. But in 1974, the focus was on preserving what they had found. Teams worked quickly to stabilize tunnels, record every structure, and protect ancient weapons from exposure. More pits soon followed. Officers, kneeling archers with crossbows, life-sized horses poised for battle. By year's end, 3 additional chambers had been uncovered, each revealing the same precision, order, and scale. As the full scope of the underground army took shape, one question remained. What kind of ruler would command an entire army to stand guard in death, just as they had in life? The first emperor of China. Qin Shi Huang was born in 259 BCE into a land divided by constant war. China at that time was not a single nation but a fractured map of rival states, each fighting for dominance. At just 13, he inherited the throne of the Kingdom of Qin, a disciplined, militarized state built on strict laws and unyielding order. From that foundation, he began a relentless campaign to unite the warring lands under one rule. Over 2 decades, Qin's armies swept across China, defeating every rival in their path. In 221 BCE, the final enemy surrendered. For the first time in history, the vast valleys and plains that make up modern China were united under one ruler. He declared himself Shi Huangdi, the first emperor, but conquest was only the beginning. Qin Shi Huang didn't just want to rule a united land, he wanted to remake it. He standardized everything, from currency and measurements to the width of cart axles. He introduced round bronze coins with square holes, set fixed weights and measures, and defined a standard unit of length known as the qi. Even the writing system was unified, replacing dozens of regional scripts with one that every official and scholar could understand. For the first time, messages and laws could travel across the empire without translation or confusion. He also reshaped the landscape itself. On the northern frontier, he ordered existing defensive walls to be joined into a single barrier, the earliest form of what would later become the Great Wall of China. To the south, he commissioned the Lingkou Canal in 214 BCE, linking 2 major rivers and enabling troops and supplies to move swiftly across the empire. From the capital city of Xi'an, an immense road network stretched thousands of li, marked with milestones bearing the emperor's seal. These roads carried trade, ideas, and armies, binding the empire together like never before. Yet beneath this order lay fear. Qin Shi Huang ruled through legalism. a philosophy that demanded absolute obedience and punished defiance with merciless force. Rewards were few, punishments were severe. A single man's tax crime could doom his entire family. In 213 BCE, he ordered the burning of books that contradicted his ideology. A year later, hundreds of scholars who resisted were executed or sent to labor camps. He didn't just want to control his empire, he tried to erase anything that came before it. His paranoia deepened with power. In 227 BCE, an assassin from the state of Xi'an named Jing Ke disguised himself as an envoy and nearly killed him in court. The attempt failed, but it left a lasting scar. From that moment, Qin Shi Huang surrounded himself with secrecy, protection, and an obsession that would define his final years, the fear of death. He searched endlessly for a cure to mortality. Ancient records tell of mercury potions and jade powders he swallowed, believing they would preserve his life. He sent ships across the Eastern Sea in search of a mythical herb said to grant immortality. His court magician Shu Fu led two massive voyages between 219 and 210 BCE, taking 60 ships and 6,000 young men and women. None ever returned. Realizing he could not conquer death, the emperor sought another kind of immortality. He ordered the construction of a vast underground palace near today's city of Xi'an, a tomb built to mirror his empire. Deep within it, he buried an army of clay soldiers, infantry, archers, cavalry, generals, and charioteers. Each figure was nearly life-size, carved with astonishing precision. No two faces were alike. Modern 3D scans have confirmed what scholars long suspected. The artisans captured real features from bone structure to wrinkles and hairlines. These were not mere statues. They were portraits of men meant to live forever in silence. Qin Shi Huang died in 210 BCE during an imperial tour of the eastern provinces of his vast empire. At the time, the emperor was traveling near modern-day Hebei province, searching for an elixir of immortality. Ironically, the man who sought eternal life was likely killed by the very substance he believed would grant it. Modern historians and toxicologists think now that the elixirs prepared for him were laced with mercury sulfide or cinnabar, a compound he consumed regularly. Over time, the poison would have caused tremors, paranoia, and organ failure, symptoms that match ancient descriptions of his declining health. Qin Shi Huang died suddenly at 49. His death threw the imperial court into turmoil. Traveling with him were the chief eunuch Zhao Gao, the prime minister Li Si, and a small retinue of attendants. His eldest son and heir, Fu Su, was stationed far away on the northern frontier. To maintain control and prevent rebellion, Zhao Gao and Li Si concealed the emperor's death until they could manipulate the succession. The journey back to the capital, Xianyang, stretched nearly 700 kilometers through the summer heat. As the body began to decay, attendants pushed carts of salted fish alongside the imperial carriage to mask the smell. Only upon their arrival in Xianyang did officials announce the emperor's death and proclaim his younger son Hu Hai as the second emperor. The decision, engineered by Zhao Gao, secured his grip on power and set the stage for the dynasty's downfall. When Qin Shi Huang was finally laid to rest, his burial was conducted in strict secrecy. Once the tomb was sealed, the artisans who knew its design were executed or entombed alive to preserve its secrets, a grim yet not uncommon practice in early imperial burials meant to safeguard the sanctity of the emperor's resting place. Yet within just 4 years of his burial, the mighty Qin Empire began to collapse. Rebellions swept across the land, and in 206 BCE, the rebel leader Xiang Yu captured and burned the imperial capital of Xianyang. By the time of the Han Dynasty, the first emperor's tomb had already slipped into legend. Yet one historian left behind records that would puzzle scholars and captivate imaginations for centuries to come. The legend of Qin Shi Huang's tomb. Over 2,000 years ago, long before the Terracotta Army emerged from the soil, the only known description of the first emperor's tomb came from one man, the historian Sima Qian. Writing during the Han Dynasty, roughly a century after Qin Shi Huang's death, Sima Qian produced his monumental chronicle, Shiji, Records of the Grand Historian. Among its 130 chapters lies a single passage that would define the world's imagination of the emperor's tomb for the next 2 millennia. It is a description so detailed and vivid that for centuries it was dismissed as myth. According to Sima Qian, construction of the mausoleum began in 246 BCE, when the young ruler Ying Zheng, later known as Qin Shi Huang, ascended the throne of Qin at age 13. The chosen site at Mount Li, near modern Xi'an, was believed to contain jade veins and to hold powerful geomantic energy, symbols of immortality in early Chinese thought. Sima Qian described a vast underground palace designed to mirror the emperor's living world. The tomb's foundation was carved deep into the earth through 3 subterranean streams, forming a sealed central chamber. Within it stood palaces, towers, and a court of clay officials, all meant to replicate the empire above ground. At the center of this realm, the emperor's body rested in a bronze coffin surrounded by treasures, ritual objects, and models of the lands he once ruled. Among the most extraordinary details in Sima Qian's account are his references to rivers and seas made of liquid mercury, the 100 rivers, the Yangtze, the Yellow River, and the Great Sea, kept flowing by mechanical means. At the time, mercury, or shui yin, meaning liquid silver, was considered both rare and sacred, tied to alchemy and eternal life. Sima Qian also described elaborate defensive mechanisms buried within the tomb. Crossbows, he wrote, were set to fire automatically at anyone who entered. Though impossible to verify without opening the chamber, this detail aligns with known Qin engineering practices. He went further, claiming the chamber glimmered with jewels and precious stones, while its ceilings were studded with pearls arranged to resemble constellations. Above ground, the emperor's palace reflected the order of heaven. Below ground, his tomb recreated the order of earth. To seal its secrets, Sima Qian wrote, "The workers who built the tomb were entombed with it. Those who entered never returned." For nearly 2 millennia, scholars regarded this account as a poetic exaggeration, a mixture of fact and fable. Without direct evidence, even Chinese historians treated Sima Qian's words as moral allegory, a description of imperial excess rather than a literal record. Western scholars who encountered the text centuries later compared it to the legends of Egyptian pyramids or Persian palaces, assuming it was symbolic rather than real until the discovery of the Terracotta Army. Today, Chinese archaeologists regard Sima Qian's Shiji not only as a historical record, but as a scientific guide. Following the clues has led them directly to the first emperor's tomb, and what they've uncovered has stunned the scientific world. The Sealed Tomb. Among the sculptures unearthed in Xi'an, a mysterious earthen mound has remained sealed for over 2,000 years. Beneath it lies what the historian Sima Qian once described as an underground palace. Modern scientific surveys now suggest he was right. Hidden below the surface is a vast complex stretching about 460 meters north to south and nearly 400 meters east to west, fortified by deep earthen walls and sloping tunnels once used by laborers in the emperor's final procession. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, scientists from the Chinese Academy of Sciences began a series of geochemical studies around Mount Li, seeking physical evidence of the fabled tomb of Qin Shi Huang. Using atomic absorption spectrometry, they collected and analyzed hundreds of soil samples from different depths and locations around the site. The results, published between 1980 and 1983, revealed mercury concentrations between 10 and 100 times higher than normal background levels. On the southern and northeastern slopes, readings even exceeded 1 part per million, an anomaly in the region's natural lowest soil. The mercury appeared not as random contamination, but in organized linear bands, implying deliberate placement. The pattern echoed Sima Qian's ancient description of mercury-filled rivers and seas flowing through the emperor's underground palace. Further studies in the 1990s and early 2000s, led by Northwest University in Xi'an and the Shanxi Provincial Institute of Archaeology, confirmed the findings using advanced techniques such as cold vapor atomic fluorescence spectrometry. These tests ruled out modern pollution or geological causes, proving that the mercury originated from ancient human activity. Researchers estimated that several tens of tons of mercury were once used within the tomb. The material likely came from cinnabar, or mercuric sulfide, mined in regions such as Guizhou and Hunan, known mercury centers since the Warring States period. This scale of operation showed the wealth and organizational power of the Qin Empire, capable of directing vast resources across long distances for a single imperial project. As research advanced, geophysical surveys in the early 2000s began to reveal the mound's internal structure. Teams from the Chinese Academy of Cultural Heritage and the Shanxi Provincial Institute of Archaeology employed ground-penetrating radar, electrical resistivity tomography, and magnetometry to map the site without disturbing it. These non-invasive methods, which detect variations in density, conductivity, and magnetism, outlined a massive subterranean complex nearly 30 meters below ground. The data revealed a large central chamber encircled by perimeter walls up to 20 meters thick, features that match ancient descriptions of a fortified underground palace. In 2011, magnetometric scans conducted by researchers from the Beijing University of Technology detected strong metallic anomalies beneath the mound. These readings pointed to large deposits of bronze, iron, and possibly gold, materials consistent with the metallic coffins, weaponry, and mechanical defenses said to guard the emperor's tomb. Though no one has entered the main chamber, scientific evidence aligns strikingly with Sima Qian's account of a buried world mirroring the emperor's court. Perhaps the most extraordinary discovery is that the tomb appears completely intact. Radar imaging shows no sign of structural collapse despite more than 2,000 years of earthquakes and erosion. Historical records tell of more than 700,000 laborers, craftsmen, soldiers, and prisoners who spent almost 4 years constructing this subterranean empire. They built grand halls, watchtowers, and living quarters for an emperor determined to rule beyond the grave. The ceilings shimmer with pearls, imitating the stars, while the ground was shaped into mountains and valleys to resemble his kingdom. Instead of rivers, channels beneath the tomb were reportedly filled with liquid mercury, believed to represent eternal life. Then, in 2020, LIDAR surveys captured vapor plumes rising from the site, consistent with earlier findings. What once sounded like myth is increasingly being confirmed by evidence. As Sima Qian noted, the emperor's paranoia extended beyond symbolism. Ancient writings describe lethal traps guarding his tomb, crossbows set to fire at intruders, hidden pits, and poisonous mechanisms designed to kill anyone who dared to enter. Archaeologists still treat these warnings seriously. No one has ever drilled into the main chamber. Every study remains non-invasive, using surface scans and sensors, because disturbing the tomb could be fatal to both its secrets and those who uncover them. At the center of this underground fortress is said to rest a bronze coffin laid upon gemstones, surrounded by gold, jade, and official records etched on bamboo. Some ancient accounts even claim that concubines and loyal attendants were buried alive beside him, sealed in eternal service. But these stories remain unverified because the tomb has never been opened. The problem is preservation. Inside, fragile relics, painted silk, wooden furniture, lacquered screens may still survive only because the chamber has remained untouched by air or light for over 2 millennia. The moment oxygen enters, decay would begin instantly. Experts admit that no technology yet exists to protect artifacts on that scale once exposed. And so the tomb remains sealed, intact, but unreachable. Still, research continues. Chinese physicists are developing muon radiography systems that use cosmic rays to map hidden spaces without drilling. Their models suggest that with the right equipment, the entire burial layout could be mapped within weeks, revealing walls, voids, and metal structures without breaking the surface. Engineers are also testing ultra-thin fiber optic robots capable of slipping through tiny cracks to collect air samples and capture images invisible to the human eye. Around the central mound, new excavations continue to expand the mystery. Ground-penetrating radar has revealed ancient roads, stables, and pits filled with bronze chariots stretching across several kilometers. In one discovery, archaeologists unearthed a 16-ton coffin believed to belong to Prince Gao, the emperor's son, surrounded by gold and silver camel statues, objects unlike anything ever found from the Qin era. A kilometer and a half to the east, the Terracotta Army still stands in perfect formation, thousands of silent guardians watching over their ruler. Every day, visitors gaze upon them, unaware that the most important secret of all still sleeps beneath the mound. And just when experts believed they had uncovered every mystery, the earth hinted there was more, something hidden deeper than anyone imagined. A shocking rediscovery. In January 2025, Dr. Mei Lin and her team returned to the southern edge of Pit 1, expecting nothing unusual. After 15 years of excavation, they had grown accustomed to uncovering foot soldiers, archers, and chariots, familiar but predictable finds. Then, a young archaeologist, John Shu, struck something different. Beneath a thin layer of dust, a faint shimmer of red and blue caught the light. At first, no one thought much of it. But when the fragment gleamed again, they realized it wasn't ordinary terracotta. It was color. Pigment that Vivid could only have survived if sealed immediately after firing. The team widened the trench and revealed a figure that had been hidden for over 2,000 years. Rising from the soil was a life-size general, carved with extraordinary precision and still bearing traces of color. His armor was sculpted with dragon motifs, the mark of a commander, and dusted with deep blue azurite and blood-red cinnabar, minerals reserved for the elite. This was no ordinary soldier. It was the 11th general ever found, and the first discovered in Pit 1. The others had all come from Pits 2 and 3, where the Qin command units and cavalry were arranged. This single statue changed everything. Every detail set him apart. His boots were thicker, embossed with cloud patterns, a Qin symbol of authority. His tall, flared crown still held traces of green malachite. When a handheld Raman scanner confirmed the presence of rare pigments, it proved that this figure represented rank and prestige. Regular soldiers had been painted in plain red, but this general's colors declared power. Then came the horses. 4 clay steeds emerged beside him, each assembled from more than 90 pieces. Their nostrils flared, muscles strained, and eyes seemed alive with motion. Conservators even found a surviving patch of black lacquer beneath one hoof. The humid conditions inside the pit had kept it intact. Laser scans revealed these horses were slightly taller than any others in Pit 1, reinforcing the theory that they belonged to a special unit crafted for display and command. Every inch was recorded in precise detail. Using photogrammetry and a high-resolution point cloud scanner from Tsinghua University, researchers mapped the statue to within 1/10 of a millimeter. The general's face drew particular attention, with one eyebrow lifted higher than the other and one cheek subtly fuller. These weren't mistakes. They were human traits. It confirmed the theory that Qin artisans used real people as models for their higher-ranking subjects, making each officer a portrait rather than a copy. Further analysis deepened the story. Hyperspectral imaging identified 6 distinct mineral pigments on the armor, including the rare Han blue, mixed with lead white for subtle highlights. This wasn't just decoration, it was theater. In its original form, the figure would have glowed in vibrant color, visible even in dim torchlight. Context revealed more meaning. The general stood only 15 meters from a trench discovered in 2023 filled with bronze crossbow triggers, each stamped with batch codes. The proximity wasn't random. It suggested that Pit 1 had been organized like a real army, complete with its own command hierarchy and logistical base. For veteran archaeologist Dr. Wei Jiang, who has worked on the site since 1989, this discovery was personal. The dragon motif on the breastplate matched designs found on bronze drums from Lingnan, far to the south, showing how far Qin cultural influence had reached. He said this was the moment the Terracotta Army saluted back, when its silence finally felt alive. The news spread fast. Within 2 days, more than 8 million people tuned into a live stream from the Emperor Qin Shi Huang Mausoleum Site Museum. Museums from Berlin to Sao Paulo requested digital scans for virtual exhibitions. The statue itself remains in Xi'an, sealed inside a nitrogen chamber to preserve its fragile pigments, but its digital twin will soon tour the world online. Meanwhile, researchers from Peking University and the Getty Conservation Institute have begun studying the armor under low-angle X-ray fluorescence to determine whether the dragon scales were carved or molded. For Dr. Mei Lin, the discovery went beyond science. Growing up in Xi'an, she had always heard that each warrior possessed a spirit. Standing in the fading light of the pit, she said that after centuries of silence, this man had finally spoken, and they were listening. The excavation season is far from over. Already the team has uncovered copper rain bits, a bamboo war drum, and a quartz arrowhead unlike any ever found. With over 6,000 soldiers still buried and AI-guided LiDAR scanning every layer of soil, this is only the beginning. Thanks for watching. Now check out the videos popping up on screen for more unbelievable stories.